Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajaka Sutara Sutta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhayacharana Arvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya, PPT founder Acharya, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem Shikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasa Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Sisi Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath, Shamakunda Radha Kunda Gira Govardhan ki jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai, Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai, Gauda Premanandi Haribol. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to you, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnuvedaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Niravasesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarane. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. 3:22:6. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are reading from the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 22, titled The marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. Text number 6. Diṣṭyā me bhagavān dṛṣṭo durdarśo yo kṛtātmanām diṣṭyā pāda-rajaḥ spṛṣṭam śīrṣṇā me bhavataḥ śivam diṣṭyā me bhagavān dṛṣṭo durdarśo yo kṛtātmanām. Wait. Durdarśo yo kṛtātmanām. Diṣṭyā pāda-rajaḥ spṛṣṭam. śīrṣṇā me bhavataḥ śivam. diṣṭyā me bhagavān dṛṣṭo durdarśo yo kṛtātmanām. diṣṭyā pāda-rajaḥ spṛṣṭam. śīrṣṇā me bhavataḥ śivam. Madhajis. Prabhu, please. It's distracting. Okay, word meanings. Diṣṭyā, by good fortune. Me, my. Bhagavān, all powerful. Dṛṣṭa is seen. Durdarśaḥ, not easily seen. Ya, who? Akṛta-ātmanām, of those who have not controlled the mind and senses. Diṣṭyā, by my good fortune. Pāda-rajaḥ, the dust of the feet. Spṛṣṭam is touched. śīrṣṇā, by the head. Me, my. Bhavatāḥ, your. Śivam, causing all auspiciousness. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is my good fortune that I have been able to see you, for you cannot easily be seen by persons who have not subdued the mind or controlled the senses. I am all the more fortunate to have touched with my head the blessed dust of your feet. So we can repeat. It is my good fortune that I have been able to see you, for you cannot easily be seen by persons who have not subdued the mind or controlled the senses. I am all the more fortunate to have touched with my head the blessed dust of your feet. Purport. The perfection of transcendental life can be achieved simply by touching the holy dust of the lotus feet of a holy man. In the Bhagavatam, it is said, mahat-pāda-rajo bhiṣekam, which means to be blessed by the holy dust of the lotus feet of a mahat, a great devotee. As stated in Bhagavad-gītā, mahātmānas too, those who are great souls, are under the spell of spiritual energy. And their symptom is that they fully engage in Kṛṣṇa consciousness for the service of the Lord. Therefore, they are called mahat. Unless one is fortunate enough to have the dust of the lotus feet of a mahatma on one's head, there is no possibility of perfection in spiritual life. The parampara system of disciplic succession is very important as a means of spiritual success. One becomes a mahat by the grace of his mahat, spiritual master. If one takes shelter of the lotus feet of a great soul, there is every possibility of one's also becoming a great soul. When Maharaj Rahugana asked Jad Bharat about his wonderful achievement of spiritual success, he replied to the king that spiritual success is not possible simply by following the rituals of religion or simply by converting oneself into a sannyasi or offering sacrifices as recommended in the scriptures. These methods are undoubtedly helpful for spiritual realization, but the real effect is brought about by the grace of a Mahatma. In Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur's 8 stanzas of prayer to the spiritual master, it is clearly stated that simply by satisfying the spiritual master, one can achieve the supreme success in life. And in spite of executing all ritualistic performances, if one cannot satisfy the spiritual master, one has no access to spiritual perfection. Here the word akṛta-ātmanām is very significant. Atma means body or soul or mind. And akṛta-ātmā means the common man who cannot control the senses or the mind. Because the common man is unable to control the senses and the mind, it is his duty to seek the shelter of a great soul or a great devotee of the Lord and just try to please him. That will make his life perfect. A common man cannot rise to the topmost stage of spiritual perfection simply by following the rituals or religious principles. He has to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and work under his direction faithfully and sincerely. Then he becomes perfect without a doubt. And the text one more time. This is spoken by Sarvabhuma, great Manu, Sarvabhuma. Okay. It is my good fortune that I have been able to see you. For you cannot easily be seen by persons who have not subdued the mind or controlled the senses. I am all the more fortunate to have touched with my head the blessed dust of your feet. Hare Krishna. Well, Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshushunnmilitan Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhuvyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, superficially, this may seem a little bewildering because Sarvabhaumana was face to face with Kardama Muni. So, just like we are face to face, why would he say, you cannot easily be seen? I see you, but you can't easily be seen. By persons who have not subdued the mind or controlled the senses, you cannot be easily seen. So what does this mean? I have a tiny glimpse only of what this may mean, and it has nothing to do with whether I ever subdued my mind or senses. It had to do with an ocean of mercy appearing in front of me and showering me with a spiritual potency which had nothing to do with my fallen condition. So, if you'll allow, I met Srila Prabhupada not in person, but I met Srila Prabhupada by his disciples telling me about him and repeating his message. And from within, I felt the confirmation as they were telling me what Prabhupada has taught. Yes, this is true. Yes, this is true. So somehow, I got that message. And that was in 1970. And so getting that message, I sold all my possessions and moved right into their temple in a city called Portland. And the leader of that part of our movement, that zone, his name was Kurandar Prabhu. He was my mentor, even though he was based in Los Angeles. So the temple president, who actually turned this fallen, useless soul into a devotee, his name was Lochan. Many of you have never met him, and yet, by looking at the Srila Prabhupada Murti on the Vyasasans, you all have met him, because that's his work. So anyway, he told Kurandar, because GBC was supposed to travel throughout the zone every month, visit every temple, to make sure that the spiritual standards are being upheld. Anyway, so Lochan called Kurandar and said, we have this new devotee, he's very strange. It's not literally what he said. He's a very intense person, you should meet him. So when it was Kurandar's time to visit the Portland temple, he met me. And he told Lochan, I would like to bring him down to LA, and I'll train him to be my assistant. The BBT didn't get created till 1972, but Kurandar was still in charge of publishing the books. as part of what we called ISKCON Books or ISKCON Press. So he wanted to train me, and Lochan said, no, you can't have him. He's our only book distributor. So anyway, in 1971, they made an agreement that Srila Prabhupada was going to come to the San Francisco Rath-yatra Festival in Golden Gate Park. Karandar's brother, Keshava Prabhu, was the temple president of San Francisco. And he wrote an amazing letter to Srila Prabhupada saying, Srila Prabhupada, our Jagannath deity, Jagannath, Subhadra, Baldev, they're ill. We cannot bring them back to their normal spiritual health. We're so useless. Only if you come personally will they be able to wake up and revive and be their selves again. So anyway, Prabhupada liked that letter. So he wrote back, all right, I will come. So for many devotees in that region of America, we had temples in Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Laguna Beach, San Diego, and we had a preaching center in the Southwest in Tucson or Phoenix, I can't remember. Anyway, for all of those centers, well, practically none of the devotees had ever seen Srila Prabhupada face to face, including me. So at that Rath-yatra festival, I was given the service of setting up ahead of the Rath-yatra picnic tables, 2 or 3 picnic tables in the park, and trucks brought out these big vats of very simple prasadam. And my job was to prepare and serve out what, embarrassingly, I say this, was called a feast to the guests in Golden Gate Park. And they had a simple khichdi. They had grapes, and they had a lemonade drink. I can't even remember if they had any bread, but basically 3 or 4 items, which is what they called the feast. And I was at the tables when the Rath-yatra started, so everybody ran to the other end of Golden Gate Park because Prabhupada was going to be riding on the chariot of Lord Jagannath. I think they only had 1 chariot back then. And Vishnu Jan Swami, the greatest kirtan singer in the history of our movement practically, was leading the kirtan. Prabhupada once said, if anyone hears his kirtan, they will become a devotee, just by hearing him sing to the Lord. He was very empowered. Anyway, so naturally every devotee went, and let's see, I had just gotten first initiation, so I was no longer Bhakta Bab, I was now Ramesvara Das, and I was left at these 2 tables to serve out the feast. And I was very busy serving it out because people were coming. They got the cold khichdi, chipped rice. It wasn't khichdi, it was chipped rice, cold chipped rice. Sorry. Chipped rice, grapes, a little cup of lemonade, and a little piece of bread. That's what it was. Not khichdi. Khichdi would have been... but cold chipped rice. I remember now clearly. And the reason I remember is because once the festival finally arrived, Srila Prabhupada was in his glory, seeing a whole park filled with people jumping up and down. Not just the devotees. Everyone in the park was jumping up and down and crying out, Hare Krishna, to the sound of the Mahamantra. So Prabhupada he loved it so much. And then he told, in the middle of the kirtan, he told Kṛṣṇa, bring me the feast. I want to see what the feast is. So Kṛṣṇa came over to the table. It's when he remembered I was there, alone. And he said, prepare a plate for Srila Prabhupada. A cheapest paper plate, cheapest Dixie cup, cheapest plastic spoon. No one had thought to bring proper plate, utensil, cup, anything for Prabhupada. So I put the cold chipped rice, a little tiny piece of bread, and some grapes on the plate, and filled the Dixie cup with lemonade. And Kṛṣṇa went up to the main stage and showed it to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was so angry. He said, you do not understand. Radharani is in charge of the prasadam for the Lord, and this is what you bring? As if this is what she offered? Prabhupada was so angry that the prasadam was not just opulent and so scrumptious that just by tasting it, you became a devotee. Sometimes prasadam would have that effect on the non-devotees. They would taste it and say, this is not, where is this from? This is not from anything on earth. This food is so heavenly. Some of us have had that experience with prasadam, but not that day. So Prabhupada, he brushed his hand away like this. He didn't even want to taste it. And he told Kṛṣṇa, bring me some water. So Kṛṣṇa runs back to the table and says, Srila Prabhupada wants water. Now I still had not seen Srila Prabhupada yet. I took a Dixie cup and said, I'm thinking, where am I going to get water? So I asked Kṛṣṇa, please have some devotee stand here to give out the prasadam. And I started running all over this Golden Gate Park looking for a park ranger. I finally found one. And I said, we have to go to your ranger station because our spiritual master wants some water. And we don't have any. And I was pleading so intensely that this park ranger went with me, unlocked the spigot, and allowed me to take from the spigot, not a hose, just directly from the spigots. I filled up a Dixie cup of water and covered it and ran back to the table and gave it to Kṛṣṇa. And that's how Prabhupada got his water after a whole day in the sun of Ratiyat. So anyway, finally, after that, Kṛṣṇa said, you know, I made an arrangement with Lotran. This devotee is going to come back with me and I'm going to teach him. But meanwhile, he has never even seen Prabhupada. He's just stuck at the table there. That's what he called it, stuck. It wasn't stuck. It was ecstasy, even though. So he went back to the table and said, you are relieved. Go and see your spiritual master. So there was tens of thousands of people in Golden Gate Park. This was documented by the media. And somehow I kept squeezing myself in between the people. I was very much skinny in those days, much skinnier than now. And I finally got midway where I could see Prabhupada. And that was when different devotees have had a similar experience where they're in the presence of Prabhupada and in their consciousness, Prabhupada is looking just at them alone. Through this whole crowd, I felt Prabhupada looking at me. And the touch of his glance, I melted, I fell down, I was in tears, I was overwhelmed in ecstasy just by his glance. So this is not a unique experience. Many devotees of my generation can tell you the similar story the first time they saw Prabhupada. So anyway, here we're reading a text where it says, you cannot easily be seen. I had started following the regulative principles before I even met the devotees for some reason. And but that didn't mean my senses were controlled or my mind was controlled. This was just akṛta-ātmanām, pure, undeserved, causeless mercy. That when I looked at Prabhupada, I didn't just see his physical body. People who just saw Prabhupada's physical body, they could have their mundane conceptions, whether Prabhupada was young, whether he was old, whether he was brilliant, whether he was Indian or not Indian, all kinds of material conceptions, whether he looked beautiful to their eyes or not. Everybody who looked at Prabhupada had different material conceptions, but they weren't seeing the real Prabhupada. So while Prabhupada was here, and he hasn't left because he's still here, but while he was here walking amongst us, Kṛṣṇa, in the hearts of the devotees, awakened in the devotees spiritual eyes to see Prabhupada not as someone born in India and who traveled to America. Kṛṣṇa in the heart of the devotees awakened their vision to see this is a person who knows God. He's descended from the spiritual world. He's an ambassador of God. He's a representative of God. He has spoken to God. He plays with God. He sees God. And he's come down to tell us all about it. Kṛṣṇa awakened in the hearts of the devotees, in their consciousness, the ability to see Srila Prabhupada in that way. And so, going back to this text, you have an emperor who has approached a great soul who has seen God. Now remember, this is obviously a different age. It's the beginning of the cycle of creation, so it's billions of years ago. Billions of years ago in the Satya-yuga, the beginning of the Satya-yuga. And so this experience is part of the history of how this universe is formed and how this universe is filled with embodied souls, how they get their bodies, and what the purpose of the society is supposed to be. So that's what we're learning about. But there's a way to relate to this today, billions of years later, in this horrible age of Kali. So with that, I want to read a few texts about the horrible age that we are born into. Because we didn't learn this from birth, or especially, maybe if you were born into a family of devotees, you learned it. But generally, we did not learn this in our public schools at all. So, I just have a few texts. I'll just read the English. This is from this is the 11th canto, chapter 2. No, 12th canto. My mistake. This is from the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 12th canto, 2nd chapter. Sukadeva Goswami said, "O king, religion, truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance, mercy, duration of life, physical strength, and memory will all diminish day by day because of the powerful influence of the age of Kali. In Kali-yuga, wealth alone will be considered the sign of a man's good birth. His wealth alone will be a sign of a man's proper behavior and fine qualities. And law and justice will only be applied on the basis of one's power. Men and women will live together merely because of superficial attractions. And success in business will depend solely on deceit. Womanliness and manliness will be judged according to one's expertise in sex. Who's the best animal? And a man will be known as a Brahmin just by wearing a thread. A person's spiritual position will be ascertained merely according to some external symbols. And on that basis, people will change from one spiritual order to the next. A person's propriety will be seriously questioned unless he earns a great living, a good financial living. And one who is simply very clever at juggling words will be considered a learned scholar. A person will be judged unholy if he does not have money. And hypocrisy will be accepted as virtue. This is the world and age, this is the age we are born in, and this is the world we're all living in right now. A person is judged unholy if he doesn't have money. Hypocrisy is accepted as a virtue. Marriage will be arranged simply by verbal agreement, and a person will think he is fit to appear in public if he's merely taken a bath. A sacred place will be taken to consist of no more than a reservoir of water located at a distance. Beauty will be thought to depend on one's hairstyle. Filling the belly will become the goal of life. And one who is audacious will be accepted as truthful. He who can maintain one family will be regarded as an expert man. And the principles of religion will be observed only for the sake of false reputation. As the earth thus becomes crowded with corrupt population, whoever among any of the social classes shows himself to be the strongest will gain political powers. Losing their wives and their property to such avaricious and merciless rulers who will behave no better than ordinary thieves, the citizens will flee to the mountains and forests. Each line is so filled with prophecy. When Sukadev says losing their wives and properties, what that means is that the corrupt, polluted men of Kali-yuga will seduce other men's wives and cause them to engage in illicit sex. And the women will do that because the men are strong and they seduce them. This is like a symptom of Kali-yuga. This is so horrible. It's as if there was no marriage. It's as if an animal would just go to another animal and just start having sex, and then move to the next animal and start having sex. This is Kali-yuga. And so people will be so sinful that the rains will be withheld. Food, grains will not grow. And the citizens will flee to mountains and forests, being harassed by famine and excessive taxes. People will resort to eating leaves, roots, flesh, wild honey, fruits, flowers, and seeds. Struck by drought, they will become completely ruined. The citizens will suffer greatly from cold, wind, heat, rain, and snow. And they'll be further tormented by quarrels, wars, hunger, thirst, disease, and severe anxiety. Now, I know I read that very fast, because if you think about each word and each description, we've just been born into that type of a world. So what are we supposed to do? Well, here we have at the beginning of the universal creation, Swayambhuva Manu, the emperor of the earth, the emperor of all humans, approaching a sage who has seen God, who carries that vision inside him and takes blessing from such a soul and guidance from such a soul. So we may think in such a society that we just read about, where the leaders of the so-called leaders are just hypocrites and liars and thieves and plunderers and warmongers and cheaters. How is there ever going to be a leader who takes guidance, who takes the dust of a God-realized soul on them? They don't even know what God realization is. They don't even believe it exists. So what are we supposed to do about this Kali-yuga? Well, I know that in some of the classes we have been talking about Varna, Ashram, and so on. And I'll just share one part of a conversation I had with Srila Prabhupada about this. He said that we cannot expect on their own political leaders, business leaders, scholar leaders in colleges to awaken. Just like in this text it says, they haven't controlled their minds, they haven't controlled their senses, they cannot see a God-realized soul. Even if they're staring at their physical body, they can't even see them. So I was asking Prabhupada, then how does this society, you said this movement came into the earth to establish a Krishna conscious society for 10,000 years. Is this supposed to happen the way other revolutions have happened? The American Revolution, war. Russian Revolution, war. French Revolution, wars. Minorities decapitating the leaders and forcing a new society. I asked, is that type of revolution how this Varnashram is going to come about? He said, oh no. He said, this Varnashram happens hundreds and hundreds of years from now, when you have distributed so many of my books. And let's understand what happens when you give a person a book. If they take a book and give a donation, and if that's all they do, their next life, and Prabhupada has written this in letters and in purports, is guaranteed to be human. Their rest of their life could be so horrible, but they get to begin where they left off, holding the divine in their hand, appreciating, even if it's the cover art, hearing a message to get them to take the book. They begin at that point where they left off. Now imagine they take their next birth. They begin at that point. Krishna will arrange for some book distributor to come again. or they'll be born into a family which has some books in the shelves. And they will then start opening the book and reading. And maybe that's as far as they get. And then they will begin in their next life where they left off. So again, they'll take birth as a human and start hearing better and reading better and start thinking like a human. And after maybe 10 generations or 20 generations of this type of births, that's 200 years, say. The people will be so filled with a desire for the human society to be on a spiritual path and not on a path of just stealing and money and illicit sex and no mercy and so on. The people, having taken so many births, step by step by step, will demand, Prabhupada said to me, they will demand a Krishna conscious government. They will demand a Krishna conscious leader. And that type of leader is who can begin to cause varnashram to appear throughout all sectors of human society. We've read that the emperor, the king, that's his duty. But how do you get such a king? At the end of the 10th canto or the 11th canto, you start, or even in the 12th canto, you start reading about these dynasties of kings who are such depraved, almost monsters. But Prabhupada said, my books are like the light of the Bhagavatam that will blind people, that will drive away the darkness of ignorance. Just holding it in their hand, just reading the title. What is this, Bhagavad-gītā? Srimad Bhagavatam? All they have to do is read the title. One word, Prabhupada said. And they're guaranteed another birth as a human. And on and on. So again, a couple of hundred years after birth and birth like this, 20 generations, the masses of people will be demanding a Krishna conscious government. Now, the symptoms that... Oh, I have to stop? Oh. Okay, I'll stop. The symptoms that we just read, famine, thirst, no food, the collapse of materialistic society, driving millions of people out of the cities. Prabhupada said that is part of the mission of, that is part of our Lord Chaitanya's golden age. This is not just what's going to happen at the end of Kali-yuga. Prabhupada said there will be a brief period that the same thing happens as part of the golden age of Lord Chaitanya's movement. And I was astonished when he said that. Prabhupada, the cities have millions of people. You're saying they're going to flee the cities? What does this have to do with our movement? Oh, he said, by then, hundreds of years from now, the leaders of our Hare Krishna movement, the future GBC and temple presidents and whatever, they will have established so many large, gigantic farm communities in preparation for this, to receive hundreds of thousands, even millions of people fleeing from the cities. I said, Prabhupada, is that possible? He said, that will happen. That is, Prabhupada telling me the future of this movement, that we will have to take these people in who are fleeing, and we will have to engage them in the simple life of taking care of protecting cows, growing food grains, offering food. I said, but Prabhupada, they'll be meat eaters. They're not devotees. They're drunkards. I mean, Prabhupada said, no, but by devotional service they change. By being engaged on these farms, they will change into devotees. And those who are so stubborn with meat-eating habit will teach them how to sacrifice a goat as an offering until they give up their taste for that. dead corpse. So there's a whole series of predictions that Prabhupada gave us. But what we just read, a little glimpse of that is going to happen a couple of 100 years from now. And the devotees of our movement, although you may not sense that they have the ability or the intelligence, they'll actually be preparing and be ready for such an event in the human society. And they will take in thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of humans who are fleeing. That plus their demand for spiritual leadership will all blend together in the future of the Hare Krishna movement of the future. So that's a little taste or a glimpse of some of the things that Prabhupada shared. And I'm sure you have a million questions or comments or hopes. So anyone have any questions or thoughts? And don't be shy or stunned. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for a wonderful class. I was kind of wondering how to tie this in, because you're saying several hundred years from now, but I'll probably be dead. And,
No, wait a minute. First of all, you can never say that. There is no such thing as death. Please. That's like Bhagavad-gītā 101. There is no death. Okay, now you can ask your question, phrase it differently.
Yeah, I'll probably be in another body or in another
that's
dimension
different.
Or something like that.
That's better.
I'm wondering what is in our, what is ISKCON's trajectory in kind of the more close to our lifetime.
Festivals and mass book distribution. Mass prasadam distribution, not what we distributed back in 71 at that first scrumptious prasadam that melts in your mind like you're not. This is when Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj was first opening the temple in Manipur. He invited a number of his godbrothers, and I was one of them. And we were sitting in 2 rows, and he and a few other devotees were serving this amazing, it was a type of khichdi. But the taste, I have tasted different types of prasadam. When Jamuna first started working on her cookbook, we gave her a 2-bedroom apartment. The ladies of New Dwarka were assisting her. And for about 2 months, I was her taste guinea pig. Every day she would prepare some lunch and they would bring it to me, and I am the least cultured person. I was just a fanatic book distributor. I had no... She was so much more cultured than I can imagine. You have no idea how elevated she was. And I was just this grunt soldier in the field distributing books and talking about books. There was such a difference. But I did taste what she was cooking and offering, but that was surpassed when I went to Manipur for the grand opening, and on these banana leaves, they were serving this amazing type of khichdi that I had never experienced before. And every one of us had the same reaction, like, this is not of this earth. I mean, literally, this taste, this experience, the effect this is having, is as if I was just transported to the amazing heavenly planet. That's what happened when I ate that prasadam. And I couldn't stop eating. And I have a small appetite, very small. I weighed about 120 pounds back then, a very small stomach. And I filled up on the whole plate, and I didn't feel that I had even started eating. I didn't feel full or anything. It just digested perfectly. So they brought me another, huge portion which I ate again because it was it was not of this world. It was as if literally I had just gone temporarily to one of the topmost heavenly planets. So our movement will be doing mass book distribution, mass festivals, beautiful kirtans that attract the mind, not external yelling kirtans, but beautiful melodic singing that a person can't help but want to dance with us. And those types of prasadam feasts like the one I had, this will change the population of the world. And we'll be doing this for hundreds and hundreds of years, every single day in ISKCON, opening more temples. You know, when Prabhupada was here, there were 120 temples. Now I'm on a GBC committee that oversees property protection. We have more than 1,000 temples. From 125 temples in 1977, so now it's not even 50 years. We have 10 times that. So just imagine the exponential growth as long as we never stop distributing books, never stop distributing delicious, scrumptious prasadam, never stop public kirtans, beautiful singing and dancing. In another 50 years, there'll be 10,000 temples. You'll run out of cities. We'll have a temple. How many temples are there in Delhi right now? 20, 15, something like that? Whatever the number. Every major city will have multiple temples in 200 years before the collapse. And we will have fed the world with knowledge and transcendental sound vibration and transcendental culture and transcendental art and transcendental festivals and scrumptious out of this world prasadam. And the world will change, the population will change. People will demand a whole society centered around this. And that's what Prabhupada said is coming as part of Lord Chaitanya's golden age. So, Prabhu, you may take many births. If you don't go back to Godhead, and if you take many births at ISKCON, that's what you'll be experiencing. Is that so bad? Just make sure if you take births again and again, that your prayer, especially at the time you're leaving the body, is, let me not forget you, Prabhupada. Let me not forget you, Kṛṣṇa. Let me not forget you, this Hare Krishna movement and Lord Chaitanya. As long as that's your ardent desire to not forget, then it doesn't matter where your next birth is. And it's not so bad. Hare Krishna. So thank you, dear devotees. And I hope every one of you goes back to God and doesn't take another birth. But in my case, if you do, I hope to be your servant in your future births. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.